course, thank you very much. And just amazing. I love the fact that you're going to bring kind of the business perspective to this conversation. And we'll start off with you in that you've heard the whole show for the most part. And we just spoke with Warren and maybe some interesting observations. Just what have you thought listening to many of these legends and people who have been so innovative over the years, like debrief on their careers?
We were talking a little bit outside earlier about the time, the years, the generation that we grew up in was a very, very special time. And all of us here started with nothing, and we had this focus, we had this idea, and in that brief period of time, in 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was, we were just able to go do it. You just went and did it. And we weren't smart enough to know that we needed CNC machines, or they weren't this. And I heard Warren talk about thinking. And when we started, we had to start with a slide rule. And the slide rule taught you to try and think about the answer before you worked the problem and make sure you were kind of close. Well, in the early days, I heard him talking about Steve Burns, and I've been through the same. It was interesting, but we weren't smart enough to be scared, and we had to just go try things and do things. And the fact that we were able to make a living doing it is even more special. And that was that special time. That was that time that if you got good at what you're doing, you could find somebody to help you pay for it, and you could make money doing it. And we've all probably been blessed to be way more successful than we deserve. It has nothing to do with being smarter or anything else. It was more luck and positioning than it was anything. But the thing that I bring, that I've watched, is all this knowledge. I just wonder how you're going to do it next time. You keep wanting to raise the bar. What do we do next time?
I don't know how we beat this, to be honest.
What do you guys do? And there's another whole generation out there that I don't think we've talked about here that's going to be very different. I don't know what it'll be. It'll be internet based. It'll be CNC. It'll be something different that will carry it to the next thing. And I'm excited. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm humbled by being here amongst all these people, and it's really been a fun ride that we've all been on all these years.
Well, I can tell you, I know Lake, by putting this all together, and we share this, is like what can we do is help bridge the gap and show the next generation what your generation is about, and try our best through what we just put Warren through a minute ago, extract as much philosophy, like how was he able to do that? How did he have the courage to do that? Why did he think that way? And hopefully, it's not going to happen with everybody, but some people out there will stick, and they'll be inspired by you guys, like Jon Kaase with this crazy 198 mile per hour street rod. Like, that's possible, and go do it. And through Engine Performance Expo, I think that's the motivation behind it.
Oh, exactly. John and I were talking earlier. One of our favorite parts of ATC was sitting at the roundtables during lunch.
Yep,
absolutely.
That was great. And that was kind of the idea of this, right? Let's take that and let people watch it.
But we didn't have this before.
No, see, that's the great
we
part.
Couldn't do it. People had to travel to it. It was very expensive, and you had to do it right then. And here, they can do it at midnight tomorrow if they want to. They can do it next month.
Right. You can do it a year from now.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so special, is taking this knowledge and using a whole entirely new venue, or in technology, if you will. And Lord knows what it's going to be in 15 or 20 years from now. It's moving so rapidly. So, I'm just impressed with what you guys have been able to do and how you've been able to put it together and bring all this stuff together.
Well, I know you were involved in the beginnings of AATC, correct? So I'm hoping we're doing a good job of being good stewards of what ATC started, and that this can be that foundation or platform going into the future, because it is important, like you said. You know, what you just talked about is that mindset. And if you approach a problem without a mindset, you're just going to hammer away, and maybe you might get lucky and find an answer that works, but you won't be able to repeat it.
No, and you probably won't even realize you solved the problem because you're so involved in all this minutia around, you forgot what you were trying to accomplish in a lot of cases.
Well, I think about, like you were talking about the gasket engine, or the what should you really call that? Was that a gasket, or was that
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Your engine master's engine, where you had
the Edsel motor.
The Edsel motor. Was that a valve seat, or was that
a big valve seat?
Big valve seat, right? That kind of thinking, I think that's like you wouldn't get there if you're just grinding away on the same path. You're never going to get there.
To John's credit, he knew what the problem was. Well, this is a way of solving it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it didn't say you couldn't do that in the rule book.
No. All right.
Which those are the fun ones, right?
You have to be a good rules reader. Yeah. I learned that from Warren.
Oh, that's too good.
Today I had, who wouldn't pay for this? I had these three guys at my table for 4 hours, or 3 hours to talk to. You know, what kind of education is that?
It's incredible to just sit around and share some of the stories, some of the ideas, some of the things, and you never know what comes out of it until way down the road somewhere.
Oh, and I met like Warren 45 years ago. You know, when
I was always an enemy of his because I was such good friends with Glidden. I wasn't allowed to talk to him at the time.
But when we met, you know, I was 24 years old, and I wouldn't have thought 45 years from now we're going to be sitting at this table.
I don't,
you know,
I don't think
kind of like live TV, more or less.
Oh yeah, pretty much is. Yeah.
You know, when we were younger, I can remember getting up and setting my alarm for 1:30 at night to sneak out in the living room, get the TV turned on to watch the 1968 or whatever Winter Nationals rerun on Wild World of Sports, because I knew when it was, and you had that one shot of the year to watch it one time, and that 1 year it was going to be on, you know. So it wasn't like you could find it on YouTube, you couldn't be live.
Wild World of Sports. That brings back some memories.
You had to suffer through a lot of stuff to watch it too.
All I remember about that was my dad was leading Talladega in 1983, driving for Hoss Ellington, and they cut from that to sumo wrestling. I'll never forget that. Dad's leading the race. I'm sitting at home, Talladega, and they come back. Oh, Richie Petty won the race. God.
We got replaced with the roller derby, so I guess.
John, what did you talked about? You know, sitting with these guys. Like, I wonder what a guy like you, who has been so creative, where your mind goes when you want to know what they're thinking. Well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I really Scooter just came in a little while ago, but he's really pleasant to listen to because he has such an idea about the way things are in this industry and stuff. You know, more so that than, you know, technical cylinder head things. You know, and so you got a little bit of everything here. And talking to John, and you know, Warren and I talked about cylinder heads a little bit and stuff like that. And you know, it's just not. You just don't normally get that. You know, and I don't like to go over to his place and you know, visit because he's busy, and you know, I don't like to infringe on his time and stuff. So it was nice to be able to just talk to each one of these gentlemen about the different aspects, you know, the different things that they do. You know, John, we're talking about the lifters that they build for the Cup cars, and quite an education today.
You know, I think the one thing, though, amongst us is we had a lot of failures along the way.
A lot of failures.
And the failures caused us to redesign or do or think, how are you going to fix it? And
made us all better.
You know,
you learn from your failures.
Yeah. Yep. And I just think that's so important today because it's too easy to get frustrated and say, we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, I'll get on my cell phone. Somebody will solve it for me.
Exactly.
Well, it's perseverance. If I keep on mentioning Thomas Edison, I was listening to that podcast coming over, and that's perseverance. Yeah. You just keep trying, you keep digging, but they invented so many things out of his company because They just weren't willing to rest,
Yep.
and they weren't afraid to fail. And as a result, it just kept on coming. And all of our lives are better for it today because of that. So I think that's what's kind of, for the racing part of it, I think that's what it is that collectively this group of guys has been pioneering by doing those things, not being afraid to fail, and now we're able to kind of pass it on so that everybody else can see it. That's the one great aspect of this platform, is that we can capture this and hand it on to the next generation.
And maybe that needs to be a foundational statement of Engine Performance Expo, or even, in a larger context, life. Don't be afraid to fail.
No, absolutely not.
Don't be afraid to fail. It doesn't have to do with racing. If you want to try something to learn something, you're probably going to not be great at it the first few times.
Failure should be an educational process. It failed for some reason or another, and it's up to you to figure out why it failed.
Yeah, why didn't it work?
And make it better.
So I'm feeling better already about going out to the Benz dyno and trying to put this ProCharge motor together. I'm like, okay, if we blow it up now, it's not the end of the world. So, hey, Lawrence says it's okay to fail.
Yeah, and that is the ultimate cliffhanger.
Yeah. I just hope it doesn't throw parts all the way to this end of the country.
Well, hopefully, Lake Havasu far, far away. We should be good.
Or get a steel plate like John had for the, you put your finger in there just in case.
You got to go watch the video. If you've not seen the video, you got to go watch it. It's fantastic.
So when you guys look at the next generation coming up, we see these amazing machines, and you've got to work with some of the young machinists that are here over the past couple of times, and there's a glint in their eyes. Maybe it was spoken a little bit earlier today, I don't know exactly who said it, but that there's maybe a little bit of a renaissance in machining going on now. People are getting involved, they're interested. When you look at, let's call it, 15 to 25-year-olds getting into the industry of this, I know you're willing to help, of course, if they're willing to ask, and hopefully they'll know that. But just give me some thoughts about the people in your lives that you've encountered. Are you optimistic?
You hear people all the time saying there's no youth in our sport. It's all people our age. Where are they going? What are they doing? The world's coming to an end. But they're just as enthusiastic and just as involved. You just have to look at a different place. Today, and I don't know anything about it, but this drifting thing is huge. It's huge. I have a kid that works for me that's 18 or 19 years old, and he is every bit as into his drifting car as we were into whatever we got started in. And, it's almost scary to watch it because it's the same thing, only it's 50 or 60 years later, and the cars look different, the kids look different, the things they do are different, but it's the same thing. And I think that we're going to see things look different. Now, the machines will still have to be machines, but the performance, the racing, I think will look a little different than it does today. It'll be something, I don't know what it'll be, but...
Well, the Holly LS Fest is a perfect example. If you think this is just an old gray hair guy deal, go to LS Fest and it'll change your whole perspective.
But you have a little bit of drag racing, you got some drifting, you got some autocross, you got all this stuff that's all performance. All of them have engines, all of them use parts, all of them want to win. They have the competitive spirit, but it's just different than what we grew up with. And that's okay. That's great. We just have to be smart enough to go look for it and change ourselves to what this new thing. The competition's the same.
Right.
The heart doesn't change.
Their passion.
The passion does not change.
Right.
Now the way they manifest that passion may change, but it's the same thing. Same thing exactly.
Some of the feedback we
you
get.
look like you're pondering something.
Well, not necessarily, but what he's talking about is the passion. They've got a passion for a different aspect of motorsports, but it's still a passion for motorsports. We look at drifting, but if they're interested into that part of it, and there's other people, they want to do the Gymkhana stuff. There's a place for everybody, and anybody that's got a passion for any aspect of motorsports, there's a place for them. Now, I started out looking at it, this is the way I'm going to make a living. That's a whole different deal. I don't know if you could do nowadays what I did back then, because the business climate is completely different. But the passion is still the same. And they're still going to use parts.
Absolutely.
I like the fact you know about the Jon Kaase stuff. That's crazy stuff. He was out at a race.
Parking lot racing.
Yeah. Crazy, like setting up videos, and those videos are seen hundreds of millions of times.
Yeah, Ken Block is unreal.
Ken Block. Yeah.
Think about how many GoPro cameras they've sold to those people. And we didn't know what a GoPro. I had an opportunity to get in on that early on, and we laughed at it and said, "Why would anybody want to do this? Who would want to put a camera on them and ski down a hill?"
Right.
Well, now it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
They sold a lot of those little crazy carts too, the electric razor.
Yeah.
Because we had 3 of them in my house.
But that's also
because they saw a Ken Block video.
It turns into the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's the passion. It's the same exact passion that
It
got
is.
us all involved. Goes back however far you want to go back.
Yeah. What do you think about Ed Pink last year? We were talking to him. It's him and Ed Escuderi and all those guys in the very beginning.
Same
they had a passion for it. They did dry lakes, and then that turned into street drag racing, and it was just, they started somewhere.
Some of us race cars, and some of us race companies, and some of us race dynos, but it doesn't make any difference. It's still the same exact competition.
Right.
And you have when you get closer to it, you don't want to lose. You get more and more and more and more.
Why be there if you're there to lose?
Right, yeah.
And you're cutthroat at the end. You'll do anything to win, whether it be a dyno run or a drag race or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is it the satisfaction of winning, or is it the distaste of losing that is more a driver?
I think it's the winning. It's the making yourself better, being the best, being better today than you were yesterday. Whether it's power or doesn't make any difference, a lifter or whatever, it's the same.
Almost like John was saying, the competition against Tony. I'm sure that probably one of the things that made the Engine Masters so much fun.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like a brain contest in a way too. I mean, because you're not really, there's no skill involved physically. You're just thinking of what you're going to do, and you build that engine, and then you're competing with a guy, and takes all the cars and the tires and the chassis setup out of it. It's just engine to engine, but the engine's just something you thought up.
Right.
So basically, you could almost do it on paper, probably. But
my thing about Warren is that, again, that competition and not wanting to lose. Yeah, that was my dad and Len Haddock, one of his great competitors that was on one of our guests. And they would say, "Hey, listen, we'll drive across the country just to beat somebody."
Of course.
Right? So we got in a van, had an old Dodge van, and we would drive all the way across the country to go to races. There was no money. It wasn't for the trophy. It was hey, we want to go race against the best. And if Scott Pruitt was in California, we go to California racing against Scott Pruitt. Not against the guy we know he can beat here locally. Let's go race against the guy we don't know.
There was no second thought to it.
No.
That's what you do. You go do it. It's okay.
Right. That's what makes us racers. Back to not drivers but racers. I think that's how you define us. Like it's who you are. It's in your DNA to compete.
Okay, so where does that come from? Like, you guys are children of the World War II generation? Is that safe to say? And so the greatest generation, they had to fight for our survival, frankly.
Absolutely.
And the lessons that they learned, they taught you? Is that safe to say?
Life lessons. And they came from a generation that went through the Depression.
Right.
Probably had the same.
oh yeah,
It was just as serious. And then, in the 60s, we had our, whatever it was that made the country different after that. And we see them happening all the time. I think as time goes on, it's probably exponentially accelerating the rate with which those happen. But those things, I think, have taught us lessons and made us better. Certainly made us made the tools better that we use, and I think in turn, if we are smart enough to learn how to use these tools that are available now, we'll be better, and our products will be better.
Excellent. and the ability to share and learn, as we've spoken, this will live on as long as the power and the internet is up. People will be able to learn from your knowledge. And I can't help but think of the story Jon told us about the pace car for the Indy 500. Like,
Right.
oh yeah, here's an impossible task. Do it in 6 months. And we don't know how you're going to do it. And source it, go. And you did it.
And it's just determination. That's what we do. You know.
Yeah, failure just isn't going to work. You got to get it done. You know, and I've told my people, if you can call NASCAR and get them to delay the race, you can have the afternoon off if you want. But I doubt that's going to happen. And they were going to run that Indy 500 right then, and you had to have something there for them to do it.
That's right.
Well, there is. It's that green flag is going to drop.
Whether
Whether you're there or not, that
That's
became to drive your life. You knew that it didn't matter what happened. There's a race on Sunday. You got to be there. I remember when we were doing the Dodge program at Melling, we were a single car team, and everybody else in that program were all multi-car teams. And they told us, hey, here, the first test is going to be on this date. It was like around this time, 2000. And we were a Ford team at the time. We were busy, and it's hard as a single car team to keep up week to week. Back then it was, at least. And we had a team meeting. I said, all right, guys, are we going to miss the first test, or are we going to be at the first test? We got to make a decision in the shop. Let's vote, because we know what this is going to be. This is going to be long nights all weekend, because we didn't have a car. It's not like now where you go this car chassis, blah blah blah. No, you had to build a car from scratch. And everybody said, yep, we're in. So we worked, and 2 weeks later, got the car to the test. Was it a good car? No. We did not go and win the test, right? It's not Hoosiers or something like that, you know.
But that's why you have those first tests.
Right.
Because now you have a place to start, and you go home with that same passion, that same dedication, and the next test, you get better. And you keep getting better until
we did.
you get there. And
Some
then
guy
you
named
start
Chad
over
Canals
again.
came in and said, that car's a bunch of junk. We're going to build another one and go test with that car, and we ended up winning the pole at Daytona with that car.
And that wasn't good enough. You wanted to go faster the next time.
Exactly.
And if you're not afraid to fail, you're going to throw everything you've got into it, because what's the worst consequence? You learn something that's going to be applicable the next time, because this is what you're doing.
Back to all the materials, right? I mean, how many of the different advanced materials did you try that failed? Probably a lot of
Pretty
them.
good stack of them.
Do you also have a room full of intake manifolds like Roy Johnson?
No, I got a whole upstairs. I think there's about 70 something up there.
We got to see these, man. They're
Modern art. The best part of any engine shop that's been around for a long time is go up in the attic. That's where all the good stuff is.
Yeah.
Right?
You go up there and look at this or that and whatnot. The reason they're up there, they probably didn't work as good as the one behind it. So you look at it and say, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you're going to be in Warren's business, you better be a good aluminum welder. Right? Between failures and manifolds and all that, you better be able to weld aluminum really good.
Oh, you just get a MIG gun and
All right, we're getting ready to wrap it up. This has been tremendous. But, you know, when we do the Hidden Horsepower podcast at the end, and each one of you has been on there, with the exception of you, Scooter.
Which means we got to get him.
If you're cool with it, we'd love to have you.
I'm good.
I like to try to get some advice for the next generation. And I wonder, you know, if you can imagine that there's some person out there who's watching this video because they have that passion and they're about to go down the road. Maybe they're going to be a machinist, or maybe they're going to be an engine builder, or maybe they're going into a performance industry. And, you know, who knows what they're thinking, but they're watching because they're curious, and this is their early step. And so we'll start on that side with Jon, and we'll work our way back this way. It doesn't have to be long, but just something that they can take with them.
I would say if you're interested in mechanics and engines and stuff, the best thing is find you a person to either work for or have them as your mentor, and find somebody that you can learn from. And if you can't do that, even if you could, probably, we have 4 guys at my shop came from Samtec. You know, and I have 4 little Judson Massengills at my place, and they are wonderful. You know, so it's a great school. Or find you an engine shop or something, but you want to learn from somebody that's really good. You know, and I was fortunate enough, I did that when I was 16, and it'll get you started in the right. You don't want to, you know, pick up lousy habits from some sloppy place. You know, you want to find a really good place that, even if you work for free, you know, internship, if you're really interested in it, you got to have to make some sacrifices, and you need to find somebody that's really good. Go to work for them, even if it's for free, and a guy can teach you a lot in a year or two that you couldn't learn in a lifetime, just about.
And there's a value there. It's almost you should be paying.
Right.
I mean, not that I want people to pay to work, but
it's the idea of apprenticeship, right? That's really what the concept is.
And the guys at my place, you know, they've had a couple years at the Samtec, and then they've been at my place for a while. They're pretty darn good, you know, and I wouldn't trade them for anybody.
Excellent.
And they've had good training. They really are determined. The one good thing about, you know, if you find somebody who went to one of those schools, is that stuff's not really cheap.
No.
So they have to be pretty serious, and to stay with it and graduate and stuff and get out of there, you know, they're probably going to be a good guy.
Excellent. John?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I see is somebody who wants to be interested or committed. You're going to start down here at the first brick. And what we find is people want to start at the 12th brick up. And all of us have started down here. And you have to get in on the ground floor. Pay your dues. Work hard. Come to work on time. Do everything you can. And you will go up. I mean, it's really that simple. If you're interested and you're willing to put the time in. And, you know...
Don't be afraid to push the broom.
Well, you know,
whatever it takes.
My dad, I never forget, he said, look, if you go to work, be there 15 minutes early, period. And don't just walk in and start doing something.
Your dad was Lombardi?
But, you know, Pop was a first-generation German and hard-nosed guy. And but anyway, what he wanted were excellent skills, and I think that's what we all want today. And people who go through, let's say, a tech school, that is really the first brick. It doesn't mean that you're qualified to be up here.
Right.
And somehow that gets lost a lot of times. So I'm for go in, put your time in. If you do good, you will be rewarded. We all want good people.
Excellent. Warren?
If they've already made the investment, such as Samtec or whatnot, they're committed. Otherwise, that money's just gone. We've had quite a few Samtec people with us over the years, and they were on the ground floor. They kind of understood what they wanted to accomplish, didn't necessarily want to be an engine builder or truck driver. At least they were committed. They've made this investment, and it's a head start. When I hire anybody, there's 2 things I wonder about: attitude and aptitude. If they got the right attitude, I'll hire them. Aptitude, you know, they think they're smarter than everybody else. I'm not the brightest bulb on the chandelier, but I know what I'm talking about here. So unless you're willing to learn, I don't need you.
Excellent. I like it. Attitude, aptitude. Scooter?
Well, it's really hard to be the last guy.
You were the first guy. I went down and then I came back.
But I would say, and it's the same thing as the attitude, aptitude. When I tried to teach my managers how to interview people, I said, you use the 3H theory: the head, the hands, and the heart. You know, they can have the knowledge and they can have the ability. If they don't have the heart, it's going to fail.
Right.
You can sometimes teach them the hands. If they have enough heart, you can teach them these other 2. But the heart is a game stopper if they don't have that. And I think what they've said about committing early and going to Samtec or one of the NASCAR institutes or whatever they are not inexpensive. I mean, that's another story for another time.
Right.
But they are committed. They have invested the money. They have invested the time, and they're not easy to get through well. So they have some heart, and then we just have to make sure that it applies to whatever we're trying to do here in business. So I'm a 3H guy when it comes to that.
Oh, I love it. That was great. Scooter Brothers, Warren Johnson, Jon Callies, Jon Kaase, and of course Lake Speed. And that's going to do it, gentlemen, for day one of edition 2 of the Engine Performance Expo. We made it. Lake, congratulations. Final thoughts.
I mean, we're back for tomorrow, man. One, it's hard to beat this cast, right? Especially this week being NHRA in Thunder Valley, to have drag racing legends.
Yes.
It was really cool to be able to pull that off. And I think, tomorrow is another day. We have a lot of cool things. Scooter, you're going to be up on the Hidden Horsepower stage tomorrow. We got George Bryce coming in. Tim Wilkerson's coming in. And then we've got a whole bunch of other things. We're going to have the Part Supply Roundtable, back to some business things, what's going on. So hopefully tomorrow's just as good as today, because today we set the bar pretty high, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, your insight, and all the advice to that. I know, we're always thinking about that, but that's what we can do, is transfer knowledge through you to the next generation, and hopefully the ones that are passionate will use it, grab hold of it, and drive our sport forward, what we love so much. Thank you so much. And that's going to do it. Engine Performance Expo, day one. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow. Those of you watching on NHRA.tv, thank you so much. And you can go back and log on and check it all out again on EnginePerformanceExpo.com. For Lake Speed, Jon Kaase, Jon Callies, Warren Johnson, Scooter Brothers, my name is Joe Costello, and we'll see you next time here at the Engine Performance Expo. What a day, what a day, what a day. My brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.